Hey everybody, this is Derek, and I am coming to you from LuckyVitamin headquarters just outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and it is a beautiful, unseasonably warm November day, and I hope you're having a great day too. It's great to have so many people joining us today for our wellness webinar about omega fatty acids and some other important nutritional supplements. This is presented by our friends at Flora. Thank you all very much for attending. So today we are joined by none other than Dr. Udo Erasmus. He is an international authority on fats, oils, cholesterol, and human health. Udo received his Bachelor's of Science in Honors Zoology from the University of British Columbia and followed this with graduate studies in biochemistry and genetics. In 1980, his life took a significant turn when he was poisoned by pesticides. When conventional medicine was unable to provide help, he concluded that his health was his own responsibility and turned his attention to nutrition. Several years of research culminated in his best-selling book, Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, which earned him a PhD in nutrition. In 1983, he began to pioneer technology for pressing and packaging edible, fresh oils made with health in mind. Udo continues to develop steps toward optimal health and to perfect solutions for modern health concerns. So before we begin the webinar, just a few quick reminders. This webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you after its conclusion. If you have any questions during today's webinar, please enter them into the question box on your screen. Also, please stay tuned for a special offer from LuckyVitamin on Udo's Choice products at the end of the webinar. Thank you all again for attending, and I'm going to turn this over to Udo now, who is coming to us from the other side of the continent in Vancouver. Udo, thank you so much, and take it away.
All right. Okay, let me bring up my screen here. I have 3 PowerPoints that I'm going to use. I'm going to be pretty loose. I'm going to just talk about fairly liberally. So the first one is about plant-based omegas. And plant-based omegas, why plant-based? Well, the first one is that the best health and longest life, the research says, and it's very clear now, is if you base your diet on plant-based whole foods and take a vitamin B12 supplement in addition to that, which basically says we're not by nature completely vegan because B12 only comes from animals, but we are mainly, it makes, to be healthy, it makes sense to get most of your nutrition from plants, plant materials. So we're talking about greens and fruit and seeds and nuts and grains and all of that. And the second reason is that plant-based omegas, if your diet is mostly plant-based, you are much better for the carbon footprint. I heard in the introduction that it's an unseasonably warm November day. That seems to be happening everywhere around the world. And whether you believe in global warming or not, we have the last 16 years have been the warmest years on record worldwide. Out of 17, 16 of them happened between 2001 and 2016. So the other thing is that plants are lower on the food chain than animals. That means they're cleaner, and they're more less energy requiring, and they're cleaner simply because toxins that go into the environment, industrial toxins, that life never made a program for, they accumulate up the food chain. So the lower on the food chain you eat, the less toxicity you're going to have. And then the other one is that plants are the foundation of all animals that eat plants, and they're also the foundation of all animal-eating creatures, of the carnivores, because the animals that they eat were made out of plants. So The second thing I want to say about oils particularly, when it comes to oils, the whole story has to be told around just two specific molecules that come from oils, and they are called essential fatty acids. There is an omega-3 from plants that is called alpha-linolenic acid, and there is an omega-6 from plants that is called linoleic acid. Those two are essential fatty acids by a very specific definition that is actually the cornerstone of all the work that Lucky Vitamins and anybody does in nutrition, which is that that is the concept of essential nutrients. It was defined very specifically, very precisely, that an essential nutrient is any molecule or any atom that your body cannot make from anything else, that you must have to live and be healthy, and that therefore you must get from outside, and you would get it in the form of food or in the form of supplement. If you get too little, your health goes down, you start to get deficiency symptoms because you're not getting enough, because life can't make your body work if you don't get enough of the building blocks. Those deficiency symptoms are degenerative in nature. They look like our degenerative diseases. They get worse with time, and if you don't get enough of any essential nutrient long enough, you die. That's how important they are. And then the third part of the definition is that if you bring in and optimize whatever essential nutrient you're not getting enough of, and because of which your health is breaking down, then all of this deficiency symptoms are reversed. And that's because life knows how to make a body using your genetic material. If you make sure that optimum amounts of all of the essential nutrients that your body cannot make land in your body so that life can do the job that it knows how to do with them. So this is the definition of an essential nutrient. It applies to 18 minerals, 13 vitamins, 8 essential amino acids that come from protein, and the 2 essential fatty acids that we're going to talk about here that come from fats, omega-3 and omega-6, alpha-linolenic acid and linoleic acid. Now I started working with essential fatty acids because I got poisoned by pesticides, and I found out when I started studying that essential fatty acids of all of our essential nutrients are the ones that are most sensitive to damage. They are damaged by light, by oxygen, and by heat. They should be treated with the most care of any of our nutrients, and we actually treat them with the least care, both in the way industry processes them to make them, to bottle them, to turn them into, from seeds and nuts into oils in bottles, and the way we use them when we throw them in the frying pan. And in the frying pan, they're damaged by light, oxygen, heat all at the same time. The higher the temperature, the faster the deterioration takes place. So I came to the conclusion that more health problems come from damaged oils in our diet than any other part of nutrition, and more benefits will come from oils if they are made with health in mind. And so I decided, gee, I can't, because I got poisoned by pesticides, gee, I can't get healthy, undamaged oils that are associated with inflammation and cancer. We should be making them with health in mind. And I developed a method for making oils with health in mind where they are protected from seed to bottle. We put them in the fridge. We tell you to put them in the fridge. And when you use them, we say to you, never, ever, ever, ever use them for frying. In fact, I say frying fries your health. Fried oils fry your health. Fried foods fry your health. If you have a frying pan in your house, and most of you do, take it out, turn it upside down, hit yourself on the head really hard with it so it is associated with pain, and then throw it out, because it will make you sick, and over time it will give you degenerative diseases, and we're talking about all of the degenerative diseases that have inflammation as their basis. That includes the arthritic diseases, it includes cancer, it includes Alzheimer's, it includes cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis specifically, diabetes. I think I've hit all the most common ones, and there are many others that also have inflammation as their basis. And when we damage oils, what we create is we change molecules that are natural, for which life made a breakdown genetic program, into molecules that never existed in nature, and for which therefore life never made a breakdown program. They accumulate in the body, they become monkey wrenches into our molecular works, and then that derails the biochemical reactions in our body that are required for making and repairing a body that actually works. Now, the essential omega-3 and 6, I found out when I started studying, because I got sick, that 99% of the population gets too little omega-3 for optimum health, that it's essential. So that means a lot of people have less than optimum health just because they don't get enough omega-3s. I got pretty excited. I said, if we could make them with health in mind and bring them back into the diet, we could help so many people. And we got lit up. I mean, I got so lit up. We were on fire. I'm still on fire. This is like 30 years later, 36 years later. And then the second thing I found out is that most of the omega-6 oils, these are our cooking and salad oils that line the supermarket shelves, that are colorless, odorless, tasteless, most omega-6 oils are damaged by the processing before we put them in the frying pan. And in fact, I actually did the math. They're about 1% damaged. In 1 tablespoon of an oil that is 1% damaged, you get more than 6 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 10 trillion cells. And I learned in genetics when I studied it that you only need a few molecules, like a handful, like for a bacteria, 2 molecules. For a human being, maybe 100, maybe 300. Let's say 1,000 would be really generous, but you're getting 6 million in 1 tablespoon. Most people take 2 to 4 tablespoons a day of oil, and we also use those oils in our frying pan where they get exponentially more damaged by light, by oxygen, by heat. And that's why, that's why so many problems come from the way we make and the way we use our oils. Now, when we talk about oils, we got to talk about 2 things. One is the food oils, and the other one is the supplement oils. And when I talk about what I do with oils, Udo's Oil 369 blend, that is a food oil. So the competition for that oil is not fish oils. The competition is the cooking, salad, and culinary oils that line the supermarket shelves. And here's the reason why. These food oil foundation oils, they contain essential and non-essential fatty acids. They contain omega-3, 6s, 9s, and saturated fats. 3 and 6 are essential. Omega-9 is monounsaturated. Your body can make that out of sugar and starch, but it's in all oils, so that's why it's in there. And then saturated fats, your body can make those out of sugar and starch. That's why they're not essential. And we need about 2 to 4 tablespoons a day. Most people, we say a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, mixed in food, and its intake spread out over the course of the day. So we're talking about 28 to 56 grams or 1 to 2 fluid ounces, which is a large amount. These are major nutrients. And then we talk about oil supplements, and these contain essential fatty acid derivatives. EPA and DHA are not essential fatty acids because the body can make them out of alpha-linolenic acid, which is the plant-based omega-3 essential fatty acid, provided that you get enough of that so that the body doesn't convert 100% of it, so that the body can do the conversion. If you don't get enough, like 99% of the population don't, then the body may not do enough conversion. But if you take an oil supplement, then usually the recommendation is 1 to 3 grams as opposed to 28 to 56 of the food oil. And the recommendation, because of research, is no more than 5.1 grams per day of the supplement, because there's some research that shows that when you take that much, you actually can increase inflammation because of probably the damage done to them by processing and the toxins they contain from the environment. You know, the fishes, everything that's dirty on the planet eventually ends up in the ocean because everything goes downhill, and then it ends up in the creatures in the ocean, and the higher those creatures are on the food chain, the more concentrated those industrial toxins become. Then you have to talk about how oils are made. And they can be made either with shelf life in mind, which is what the main oil industry does, and that's if you want to ship. They want a long shelf life for molecules that by nature have a short one, and they figured out that if you treat it with Drano or sodium hydroxide, then window washing acid or phosphoric acid, very corrosive acid and base, then bleach them, which turns them rancid, but removes some stuff that shortens shelf life, and then heat them to frying temperature to blow off the rancid molecules because they make the oil stink. Then if you do that, you have an oil that you could put on a shelf, you know, nitrogen flush it, put it in a bottle, stick it on the shelf, and it has a 2 to 3 year shelf life. And that means you could make it in Philadelphia, and you could sell it in Johannesburg and in Osaka, Japan. So that means it gives you a very large potential market, and that then leads to economies of scale, and that then leads to, you know, huge amount of monies potentially that can be made on a product. Very different from if you'd have put them in a little press and there's no protection from light and oxygen, then you have a bottle of oil, and that bottle of oil, you know, has, once you open it, it may be rancid within 8 weeks. And that limits, you know, if your product only has an 8-year shelf life, you can't make it in Philadelphia, and you can't even sell it in Miami by that time, you know, but you certainly can't ship it by boat, you know, which takes 2 to 6 weeks. You know, you don't get that big market. So, or an oil and oils that are made with shelf life in mind and damaged, they increase inflammation and degenerative conditions, which I already said. And an oil supplement, by the way, can't fix that problem, because if your food oil foundation is damaged, you need to fix the foundation. You can't just throw a supplement at it and that will then override the damage you did to the food foundation. So again, the supplement is not competition for what I'm doing. I'm trying to fix the food oil foundation that's been wrecked by the way industry makes oils and by the way we use them in food preparation. So, so what we do is we make the oil. We start with organically grown seeds, because one of the reasons why the industry overheats the oil is to try and remove half of the pesticides in the oil. Well, if you don't have any pesticides in the seed, you don't need to do that. So we start with organically grown seeds. We don't use any harsh chemicals in it. We don't use high temperature. We protect them from light, oxygen, heat, all the way through from the time they're closed in the seed. Nature's packaging is very good. All the time through the pressing, the filtering, the filling, to the time they're in a brown glass bottle with a box around it to cut out all the light, and are in the fridge, because the lower the temperature, the longer the oil stays fresh. So there's no damage. They're nitrogen flushed, and we recommend to people, keep them in your fridge if you want to keep them long term. Like if you buy oil by the case, once you get to know how good it is for you and you've noticed the benefits, then buy it by the case, stick it in your freezer, freeze it solid. That gets you a 3-year shelf life. And that's what I do. I have my whole case in the freezer, and I take out the bottle. I use one at a time, and basically, once I open it, I use it up within 8 weeks. That's what we recommend you do. If it's closed in the fridge, it's got a 1-year shelf life because it's nitrogen flushed, and if you freeze it, it has a 3-year shelf life. Just say one more thing about frying. Frying is the worst thing that we have ever invented in our how many years we've been around to do to our foods. And then you use an oil that's made with health in mind. You can use it in hot soup, in steamed vegetables, in any hot dishes once they come off the heat. But you can also use it in warm foods and in cold foods. and they're literally compatible with all foods. The oils go with protein, they go with fruit, they go with vegetables, and they go with starches. So, and then you find that you get better results when the omega-3s, when there are more omega-3s in an oil than omega-6s. And that's because almost everybody is too low in omega-3s. People are getting omega-6s, but they're getting them with damage. And we put omega-6s in the oil because we want you to get off the cooking oils and get onto omega-6s that are also made with health in mind, that don't have 6 million plus damaged molecules for every one of your body's 10 trillion cells in 1 tablespoon. So what we say is switch out from the cooking oils to a blend like Udo's oil that has omega-3 and omega-6 in the right ratio, made with health in mind, in glass, because oils swell plastic and plastic leaches oil quicker than it leaches into water. And actually my first oil was flaxseed oil, and I became omega-6 deficient on it because it has a lot of omega-3s in it and not enough omega-6s. So when I made that my only source of oil in the diet, because I wanted to see what would happen, I became omega-6 deficient. I had dry eyes, skipped heartbeats, arthritis-like pain in my finger joints, and thin, papery skin. And those are classic omega-6 deficiency symptoms. And so I fixed that by eating sunflower seeds, which have omega-6s but no omega-3s. And that brought the balance back. And when that happened to me, I said, gee, you know, I'm trying to get people healthy. If you can actually get worse on what an oil that I make, let me make an oil where that can't happen. And that was one of the reasons why we created the blend, the oil blend. And the other reason was that people would say to me, gee, this is a complicated area. Every seed has a different amount of oil, and the fatty acid profile of every seed is different than every other one. And, you know, the different fatty acids have different functions. Is there one thing I can get that gets me all the good stuff that I need from fats and avoids all the bad things that I should avoid from fats? And that, by the way, that's why my book is called Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, because they are literally two completely opposite stories on fats. Some of them you gotta have, and some of them will mess you up. And so you need to know which ones are which and choose the ones that help heal you, help you, unless, you know, you want to check out quicker, in which case you get the bad ones. And they're required by every cell. And so they're important for pregnancy, for mothers and for babies. They're important for brain development and brain function. They improve focus, learning, and IQ. They form a barrier in this together. Both of them together form a barrier in the skin against the loss of moisture. So they are nature's moisturizer, and the best way to oil your skin is from within. With athletes, we noticed that within a month of starting on a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day of Udo's oil, the blend, they had 40 to 60% increase in energy. They performed better. They recovered quicker. They healed in 1/3 to a half the time. And we worked with every kind of athlete under the sun. We worked with stamina, endurance athletes. We worked with weightlifters, bodybuilders. We worked with boxers. They said their reflexes were sharper. We worked with martial artists. We worked with cyclists, runners, hockey players, baseball players, basketball players, and literally didn't matter what sport. We actually took marathoners and we said, don't carb load. You know, that's what they were all doing. Carbs get you 20 miles and then you hit the wall, and then the last 6 miles were serious agony. We said, no, you're doing it wrong. What you need to do is you need to carb deplete for the race, before the race. And you want to run the entire race on oil, because carbs will get you 20 miles. But if you're 8% body weight and normal body size, then if you run half of the fat off your body, you go 300 miles on that. And fat is the way that the human body stores its energy source. So, and then if you have omega-3s in your diet, omega-3s turn on fat burning in your body and they turn off fat production, provided you don't eat carbs, because carbs will override that, because your body has to burn them, because if you get too many carbs, they're toxic. You can store 300 pounds of fat and still survive. So fats is really supposed to be what we run on, but not saturated fats. Omega-3s are the high energy, high octane fuel for athletes. But you got to have both. And then they decrease, omega-3s decrease inflammation. The body actually turns them into very powerful anti-inflammatories called resolvins, and into powerful antioxidants called protectins. And they also molecules that help the immune system, and they're called maricins. And the more recent, they found out that the body also turns them into endocannabinoids. You know, that's what you get high on when you smoke a doober. But actually, oil will get you those made in your body, and it's one of the reasons why they elevate mood and make people feel better. They help with weight, because you get stable energy. You don't get cravings like you get on carbs. They don't spike your insulin. They don't get you mood shifts that make you eat. They don't lead to overweight or obesity. And if you make good oils your main fuel, you will not end up with diabetes and the cardiovascular disease that kills most diabetics. They also prevent and solve the problems associated with saturated fats. You know, we've been told saturated fats make your platelets more sticky and interfere with insulin function and make you insulin resistant, which is one of the problems in diabetes. And what turns out, the omega-3s do exactly the opposite. They make you more insulin sensitive, and they make your platelets less sticky. And so what we blame on saturated fats should actually be blamed on the fact that most of us don't get enough omega-3s. When you optimize your omega-3s, like we recommend, a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day of an oil that is about 40% omega-3, you optimize omega-3s, then saturated fats stop being a problem, cease being a problem. And then when you optimize your intake, then your body's conversion to EPA and DHA and eicosanoid hormones takes place in your body as needed. But even if you couldn't convert, you would still need the foundation, simply because it is a foundation of major nutrients. So even if you couldn't convert, you still need the food oil foundation. Okay, so let me race down here and see what I haven't covered. What's essential? Talked about that. Talked about food oil foundation and supplement. Let me make a statement that I call my all some none statement. There you go here. The way you need to look at oils is all of us need a food oil foundation that's made with health in mind if we want to be healthy. Some of us will benefit from adding supplement to that foundation, but none of us can be healthy on supplements alone. That's the way you have to think about the essential fatty acids and the oils that you take. A lot of people think you just pop a pill of fish or krill or something, and then that'll take care of your fat requirement. It just does not work that way. You got to have a healthy foundation, and then you can add a healthy supplement to that, and that may give you benefits as well. So we've already talked about that. Fish oil. Okay, so here's the oil, the Udo's oil. Plant-based organic oils contain omega-3, 6, and 9. 9 is not essential. 3 and 6 are essential. Non-GMO, verified, certified organic, plant-based, raw, unrefined. Oops, sorry. And here's what's in it. Organic flaxseed oil, and that's for the source of omega-3s. High energy, performance, anti-inflammatory, recovery. We already talked about that. Sunflower oil contains omega-6s. Sesame oil contains omega-6s. both of these, and by the way, all the oils we use, we also use them because they have good antioxidants and flavor molecules and other molecules that you find normally in oil when they're not refined out. And they have benefits as well. Organic coconut oil, I like it for the flavor, but also for the antioxidants, and they contain MCTs. MCTs are good for energy, but omega-3s are far more effective for increasing energy performance, recovery, and healing than our MCTs. Rice germ oil, I like it for the antioxidants and the gamma oryzanol, which increases energy. Very nice for athletes too. Evening primrose oil has GLA in it, but I have it in there for the polyphenols, which are exceptionally good antioxidants in oils. Organic soy lecithin, that's for cell membrane structure. It also helps to emulsify oils, makes them easier to digest and absorb. And we get the soy lecithin from Europe because it's not available GMO-free guaranteed in North America. So we had to go to Europe to get it because in Europe they don't like GMO. And so they actually separate GMO crops and you can get it. We have GMO-free crops in America too, but the company that makes the lecithin, they mixes them together. And when I called them and asked them, would you separate them? They said no. So I said to them, fine, I will do business with you when you do, when you change your mind. They've never changed their mind. We've never done business with them. And then oat germ oil, again, for phytosterols and for antioxidants. And tocopherols is vitamin E. That's to a little bit extra antioxidant protection. But the best protection you get on oil is to keep them away from light, from oxygen, and store them at low temperature until you use them. Here's the 3 oils that we make. The first one is the 369 oil blend. That's the plant-based. No DHA, EPA in that one. It's the one I use because I know that my body does the conversion. And then the second one is a high lignan. It has some seed material in the bottom. You stir it up, that gets you lignans. Lignans are molecules that come from flax, and they have anti-everything effects. What does that mean, anti-everything? Antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, anti-cancer, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-lupus, anti-cholesterol, and anti-autoimmune. So these are very, very hot molecules. You can get them from the flax seed, but we made an oil that has the lignans in it simply because it's an easy way to take them, and there was a demand for it, basically. And then the third one is the Udos Oil DHA 369 blend, and that one is the same as the 369 blend, all 3 of them are, but in this one we have unrefined DHA from algae. And that's because some people do better when they have a little more DHA. For instance, when a woman is pregnant, when she's breastfeeding, babies until they're about 2 years, huge amount of brain development, and that requires DHA. And that until they're 5, the brain is still in pretty serious development mode. So we put it in for that. But there's also research that's more recent that shows that as people get older, their brains shrink. And as their brains shrink, they lose mental capacity. And DHA helps them retain or prevent the brain shrinkage and retain their mental capacity. I'm 74, so maybe I should be taking that. But this DHA is interesting. It's unrefined. It's made by plants. In fact, the fish oil DHA doesn't come from the fish. Most fish don't make DHA. What they do is algae make it, and then krill eats them. Krill doesn't make DHA. It gets them from the algae. And then a little fish eats the krill, and then a bigger fish eats the little fish, and then a big fish eats the medium-sized fish, and then a whale or a seal eats the eats the big fish, and then a polar bear eats the seal, and that's how DHA makes its way all the way through the food chain, but is plant-based, made by these one-celled organisms in the ocean. And so we get those grown in tanks, so we have control over the cleanliness of the environment, and they're fed. They turn sugar into DHA. Wouldn't that be cool? You could eat a donut, and then all of a sudden your body made brain DHA out of it, and you eat a donut and you become smarter. But that doesn't happen. We can't do that, but these algae can turn sugar into DHA. So those are the three oils. We talked about conversion. Rabbits, horses, elephants, they only eat plant foods. They have as much DHA in their brain, their retina, and their sperm as other animals that do eat fish. And so rabbits, horses, elephants, gorillas, and there are 300 million Hindu Brahmins in their Brahmin caste. They've been obligate vegetarians for more than 5,000 years, never eat fish, never take fish oil, just as smart, see as well, reproduce as effectively as fish eaters and supplement oil users. So, and they have ALA in their food supply. They eat psyllium seed. That seed is about 30% alpha-linolenic acid, and then in their chickpeas and their lentils and those things they eat, and there's a little bit of ALA also in any green foods. Conversion, ALA to EPA, 5 to 10% in both genders, ALA to DHA, about 5 to 10% in women, much lower in men, although there was research just done that was published in 2015, so it was last year, and it says, can alpha-linolenic acid turn into docosahexaenoic acid in sufficient quantities? That's not the title. The title is docosahexaenoic acid synthesis from alpha-linolenic acid sufficient to supply the adult brain? And what they found out in this study is that the way those studies were done, it underestimates the conversion by anywhere between 5 or more times, and it's because of the way they did the studies, and they should have done the studies a different way. And when the studies are done properly, then you find out that the conversion of ALA to DHA is at least 3 times higher than what the research so far has shown, simply because they were using a method an erroneous method. Now, men don't need as much conversion as women do, because when a woman gets pregnant, she needs to build a brain in her body, the baby's brain in her body, which requires DHA. And if she doesn't have enough ALA in her body, or she couldn't convert into DHA, the child would steal it from her brain. And when women are on poor diets that don't provide omega-3s, then they get, sometimes they call it baby brain. They get postpartum depression and low energy and chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, collagen, inflammatory diseases. And the researchers think that that's because when they have children, they get depleted of their omega-3s, and that those symptoms come from that depletion. And they recommend that women need to make sure they have a reliable source of both essential fatty acids in their diet, both for the health of their health and the health of their children. So we've talked about health life and shelf life. And then how you store it, we call it oil so hot it needs to be chilled. Frozen for 3 years. When molecules don't move, they don't meet. When they don't meet, they don't react. When they don't react, the oil doesn't deteriorate. When it's cold and closed, 12 months in the fridge. Once open, air gets in, so you use it up within 8 weeks. If you leave it at room temperature and open, depending on how warm it is in your house, you can taste rancidity sometimes as quick as in a week. And the capsules, you can keep them without refrigeration for a year. The capsules are good for travelers. I don't use the capsules. It makes it look like a supplement, but these are not supplements. The recommendation is 6 capsules a day. That gets you about 2 or 3 grams of alpha-linolenic acid. That's enough for your brain needs, but it's not optimum for all the things that omega-3s can do, because there is 14 grams in a tablespoon, and most people should be taking 2 to 4 tablespoons. 28, that would be 28 to 56 capsules. And the capsules are expensive because encapsulation is an expensive process. So they cost 3 times more than the oil in the glass bottles. Why glass for packaging? Glass has class, we like to say, and plastic is spastic. Glass doesn't leach anything into the oil. Metals catalyze damage to oils, so then they put shellac in them. The shellac is not something you want in your body. Wood, oil seeps in, goes rancid, polymerized. Cardboard is covered with paraffin and petrochemicals. So we use glass. It's a little less convenient. It's heavier. It costs a little more. But from a health perspective, we're basically willing to do the extra work to go the extra mile to give you a product that gets you the extra benefits. 2 weeks without shipping without refrigeration is maximum, and we ship out of West Coast, out of East Coast, so 2 weeks is plenty. When we ship it international, Europe, Asia, Australia, South America, we actually have had one bottle, at least one bottle in Antarctica. Somebody took a picture of it and sent it back to us. Kudos, oil in Antarctica was the headline. And so when we ship it longer, we actually ship it refrigerated, just because that preserves the freshness of the oil. And then you could use it in any food. Already said that. If you want to fry, use water. I know water is not an oil, and you don't fry with water. You cook and you boil and you steam and you poach. You pressure cook with water. Oil should never, ever, ever be used for frying, so wang yourself on the head with the frying pan and then throw it out. And then there's some of the benefits: pregnancy, breastfeeding children, mothers, grandmothers, guys too, strength, endurance, performance, recovery, brain function, learning, mental stamina, attention, concentration, memory. I found in Science Daily today an article that probiotics improve Alzheimer's, and we're going to get to them next, but also that omega-3s improve Alzheimer's and cognitive function. Cognitive function is mental function. They lower cholesterol, high blood pressure, high C-reactive protein or CRP. They improve circulation. They make platelets less sticky, and they basically they improve all of the cardiovascular risk factors. Skin, they make bones stronger because they help in the mineralization. They actually transport minerals throughout the body. And then weight management: if you eat carbs, you're going to burn them. Either you burn them or you're going to wear them. How many you can burn before you wear them depends on how active you are. So athletes can eat more carbs than sedentary people. And how do you know you're wearing them? You do a pinch test on your belly or your butt. If the pinch test comes up empty, you burn them. If it comes up full, then you need to lower your carb intake. And you do it by doing a fuel shift. You can't just eat no fats and then not eat any carbs, because then you have no energy because you have no fuel. So you make a shift from carbs to good oils and use good oils as your main fuel, and then you get stable energy, no cravings, no insulin. I already talked about all that. And so plant omega-3s are much more sensitive to damage than the omega-6s. EPA and DHA are much more sensitive than the plant-based omega-3s. Every cell needs them, should be made with great care. And that's about it. Optimum intake enables optimum conversion, and optimum intake enables optimum health. Okay, so we're done with this one, and now we're going to go to probiotics. Probiotics are so hot these days. It's amazing. So much research being done. And let me begin by talking about bacteria, because probiotics are bacteria. We have 7 of them, and you'll see why. 4 of them are age-specific, 4 of them are condition specific. And I'll explain why we can't just do one for everybody. So bacteria make up 10% of the body's biomass. They're everywhere. They're in the soil, they're in the air, they're in the water, they're on your skin. You know, even if you wash your hands with everything you can, sterilants and sterilizers and all of that, they're still everywhere. You know, they're on your clothes, they're in your shoes, you know, they're in your underwear. I mean, they're everywhere. Bacteria are everywhere. And there are 3, including they're also in, you know, our armpits and our belly button and our every body opening. And there's 1,000 different kinds of microbes in our digestive tract. And microbes come in 4 kinds. One is, we call them commensal. That means they're neutral. They don't give you any benefits and they don't cause you any harm. And they just hang around, and you know, probably nothing is quite like that has no benefits one way or the other. But sometimes people say that. Then the second one, I call them the sick bacteria that can make you sick or kill you, like E. coli, salmonella, listeria, cholera, typhoid, and you find those in food and water. And they love to live inside your digestive tract because it's warm there and there's lots of food there. But if you got them in there, then they would make you sick. And in cholera and typhoid, you get diarrhea, and most people who die from those diseases, actually, they get diarrhea so bad that they become dehydrated and die from the dehydration. And it's a very intense way to die. And it happens sometimes when hygiene gets messed up in countries during wars, and you hear outbreaks of cholera and typhoid when that happens. And then there are rot bacteria, and they're everywhere. And their job is to break down and recycle dead creatures. And then there are protective bacteria, and they keep the sick and the rot bacteria at bay while we live. And protective microbes include probiotics. There are 2 specific kinds that we work with, lactobacilli and bifidobacteria. They don't form spores. They need refrigeration because otherwise they die off pretty quick when they're kept in capsules. And where do they come from? Well, they live on plants. They're in the top layer of fermenting plant material on top of the soil. They're in the soil along with sick and rot bacteria. They're in breast ducts. They're in the birth canal. They're in all orifices, eyes, nose, belly button, everywhere. In the gut, along with 1,000 other kinds of microbes. They're in fermented foods. And if a kid is born by cesarean section and not breastfed, they get deprived of the probiotics that protect them, and later on they have more problems. Probiotics are also found in supplements, either as powder or in capsules. And it's been shown in research that plant-based whole foods support protective microbes, and animal-based foods protect detrimental microbes. And the shift from protective to detrimental only takes about 2 weeks, like when you go from a plant-based diet to an animal food-rich diet. And then if you don't like that, because these have many bacteria that make toxic molecules that affect your health, if you switch back to a plant-based diet, within 2 weeks, you've got a whole set of better bacteria in your gut again. So it only takes 2 weeks. And then there's a ton of genes in these microbes that make molecules. Like we have 23,000 genes, and many of them make very specific molecules. The microbes altogether have 2.3 million genes. That means there's 100 times more genes in the microbes that make up about 2 pounds in our digestive tract than there is in our body. So they make lots of different molecules that are healing and are toxic, and those get absorbed, and then they affect not only the gut wall, but also the intestinal function, the digestive function, the immune cells that line the digestive system, the immune system generally throughout the body, the liver, and even the brain. You know, there's research that shows, now this one here was probiotics improve cognition in Alzheimer's disease. I just told you about that before. but also anxiety, depression. There's even research that indicates that they decrease the symptoms in schizophrenia, and that they have benefits for autistic kids, and that they have benefits in, along with omega-3s, in dyslexia and ADD, ADHD. So enormous potential in these microbes to affect our health in a positive or negative way. Now, why do we take supplements of probiotics? It's because when you cook foods, you kill the friendly protective probiotics, and when you pasteurize foods, you kill them, and when you take antibiotics, you kill them too. So in order to be healthy, you have to replace the ones that you kill. We work with human-adapted probiotics, which are probiotics that are at home naturally in the human digestive tract, and they implant in the lining of the digestive tract, eat there and multiply, and hang out for 10 to 14 days. And that's different from dairy and other non-human adapted bacteria, which are transient. They just stay in the food part, they don't implant, and they run through your body. They pass through your body in a day. The lactobacilli and bifidobacteria both have benefit. The bifidobacteria are the better ones, but they are more expensive and they're harder to make. And so many people put only a little bit of them into their formulas because they want to put it on the label, but they want to not pay the extra price, and then they make a little more profit. Should be refrigerated for best results, and that's because they, if you keep them refrigerated, they'll lose 40% of their potency in a year. If you keep them at room temperature, they'll lose 1 to 2%, and in 50 days they could all be dead. Now when I travel with them, I take them with me unrefrigerated in my suitcase. I keep them as cool as I can, but I know that I will lose some, but I take the high dose ones, like the Super Bifido Plus. I take a high dose one, and I'm never on the road for more than 50 days without refrigeration. So I start with a lot of them, and even if half of them die, I still have a lot, because Super Bifido is like 100 billion. If you swallow the capsules, then you miss the benefits in your mouth, esophagus, and stomach. So my recommendation is you open the capsules, mix them in food that's cool enough to eat, or you brush your teeth with probiotics after meals and before bedtime. And I'll come back to that in a second. The reason why we have 4H specific is the kind of probiotics present in a healthy human gut change with age, plus the count needed for optimum benefit increases as we age. So we have an infant that's a powder, 3 billion, because infants don't swallow capsules. A children's in a capsule, that's 5 billion. Adult in a capsule, 17 billion. Advanced adult or seniors capsule, 34 billion. And the benefits, they include diarrhea, constipation, liver problems, immune problems, brain function. Even there's now research that sometimes people can't lose weight, and when they start taking the right kind of probiotics they need, they start being able to deal with their weight problems. And just probiotics helping with obesity is pretty cool. Super 5, these are condition specific. Super 5 is an after meal lozenge. It's flavored, 2 billion, and you're supposed to suck it, not chew it. Takes about 13 minutes to digest in my mouth, and probably around that time in yours as well, 10 minutes. So if it's not in your mouth for 10 minutes, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, which is to dissolve it in your mouth. Super 8 is in a capsule, 42 billion. That's for yeast, and some of you may have seen the panty ad that made them very popular. But they're also very good for travelers because they help to prevent Delhi belly when you go to India and Montezuma's revenge when you go to Mexico. And these are pain and bloating and cramps and diarrhea that you get when you go to a place in the world where the microbes are different than here and your digestive tract is not used to them. So that I use that one for traveling. A lot of women use it to deal with yeast candida problems. And then there's Super Bifido Plus. That's the high dose, 102 billion in a capsule. And they're 80% bifidobacteria. And they're for more serious gut microbiome imbalances in your lower small intestine and your colon, where you get Crohn's, irritable bowel, colitis, ileitis, those kind of problems. And what I do is I brush my teeth with them before I go to bed, and I wake up with exponentially less severe bad breath in the morning. It's remarkable. You do your dental hygiene, brush your teeth, swallow them, leave them in your mouth, don't rinse your mouth. You want them to stay in your mouth, and they fight the rot bacteria that take over your mouth if you don't do that. And they steal their food, outpopulate them, and inhibit their growth. That's really quite remarkable, the difference it makes when you do that, how your breath smells in the morning. Then you don't have to say, excuse me, honey, I want to talk to you, but I got to brush my teeth first. I think most people know that one. We keep them refrigerated because they lose 40% potency in a year under refrigeration. And like I said, without refrigeration, they lose 1 to 2% per day. Human adapted survive stomach acid and bile, so there's no need to enteric coat the ones that are at home in the human digestive tract. And you want to get them with the count on the label for each of the probiotics that are in it. These are blends. And because that lets you know what you're getting. Some people don't put it on. I'm not sure why. I think that's not a good idea. Okay, so let me go through that. I've done all this. Bifidobacteria, lactobacilli. This is just research that shows you need more bifidobacteria. They go down as you get older, and you have more problems in your colon, in your lower digestive tract as you get older, and that you should use bifido to help with that. Did all this. Best started in mouth. Here's the, oh, I was going to take out the idiot proof, but it's for easy selection. And there are 6 strains in the infants, 7 in the children's, 6 in the adult, 7 in the advanced adult, 7 in the Super 8, 8 in the Super Bifido Plus, and 5 strains in the Super 5. Super 5, that's why it's Super 5. Okay, and then there's just that, and then this just goes through them with the percentages of each of the probiotics in them, the total count, and then the percentage of each of them. And there's the children's, and there's the adults, and there's the advanced adult, the Super 8, the Super Bifido Plus, and the Super 5. And eventually we'll put this on the website, and maybe Flora will do that too, and then you can have a look at what's in there. And that's the end of the second. Now the third one is short, and it's about enzymes. And there's the end. Oh, that was a mistake. Hang on. There's the enzymes. We got 3 of those. Enzyme blend, adult enzyme blend, advanced adult enzyme blend, and then a little package that you can take to work with you. Enzymes don't need refrigeration because they're stable, they're molecules, and they help. They're special protein molecules that break down proteins, fats, starches, and other food molecules into the basic building blocks that life absorbs into your body to make you. They're super fast acting, and they're like catalysts. They can do 1 million molecular breaks per second per molecule. That's really fast. That's like faster than Data in Star Wars, for those of you who are old enough to remember him going back and forth and getting things done really fast. And you can digest a large part of your food in your upper stomach where the foods are waiting before they go into the stomach's acid bath. Usually 60% of the digestion is done before food hits your stomach, and enzymes can be active during that hour doing an enormous amount of work. Enzymes are present in all cells. They're present in raw foods. They can they can digest 10 to 90% of the food they're in once you break down that food by chewing. Enzymes also made in the body, in saliva, in the stomach, in the pancreas, and in cells that line the digestive tract. And enzymes are available in supplements from animals, usually pork pancreas. Those are only active in alkalines, so they're destroyed in the stomach. And they also often get people allergic reactions. They can come from plants like pineapple and unripe papaya. If you eat a lot of pineapple and your tongue tingles, that's because it's a protein digesting enzyme in pineapple, in raw pineapple, not cooked. It's destroyed when it's cooked. But in raw pineapple, that will actually start digesting your tongue. And that's why your tongue starts to tingle. And then they can be made by microbes, bacteria and funguses. And the enzymes made by those are most versatile, have the widest range of pH activity, and are therefore better in their function if you're going to take an enzyme supplement. Now, why would you do that? Well, we're cooking, pasteurizing, boiling, baking, and frying destroy the enzymes that are present in raw foods. Then the digestive system has to do more work. It wasn't intended to have to do that. It can get overworked. Then it can break down and falter or fail. And then the immune system has to get involved, which makes your immune system less free to patrol your body for infection, inflammation, and cell repair and renewal. And even raw foodies report that when they take enzyme supplements with their raw foods, their digestion is better than when they don't take them, even though they're eating raw foods that do contain enzymes. Proteases break down proteins. Make sure, and those are the most important in my view, because they ensure that the proteins are completely broken down. Otherwise, poorly digested proteins can get you gas, bloating, pain, food sensitivities, food allergies, even autoimmune reactions are associated with poorly digested food. And because your immune system is weak and it's tied up in digestion, you get more viral, fungal, yeast, and bacterial infections. Lipases break down fats and oils and phospholipids, membrane fats, and they're particularly important in celiac and cystic fibrosis, where there are real serious problems with fat digestion. But generally speaking, fat digestion is fairly simple and pretty effective in most people. In fact, if you eat fat, they've measured that 96% of the fatty acids end up in your body and 4% end up in your stool. So that's pretty effective. Then there's amylase, which breaks down starch. We don't use much amylase because I would rather slow down starch digestion, because the faster you break it down, the faster it turns into sugar, the faster you get high blood sugar, the faster you get insulin spikes, and then fat production, and then cravings and mood changes. So I would just as soon not digest starch faster. But you need a small amount, because on some proteins there are starch strings that make them impossible to digest until the starch strings have been clipped off, and amylases do that, and that's the only reason we put amylase in the product. Then there's alpha-galactosidase, and that is basically specific to digesting raffinose. Raffinose, I call it the fart sugar. You find it in beans, onions, and broccoli, and it's one of the reasons why they get you gas, because your body does not make alpha-galactosidase, so you can't digest those sugars. Then there's lactase, which digests milk sugar, and some people make it well, and some people are lactose intolerant and don't make it well. So those people, if they're going to eat dairy, will need to take an enzyme that does that breakdown for them. Best way to use them is to open the capsules, mix enzymes into the foods when they're cool enough to eat, because if you put them in boiling soup, you'll destroy the enzymes. You can take them during the meal, you know, eat some, take one, eat some, take one, or you can take them after you eat, when you overeat, and you notice very quickly the stomach pain goes away when you do that. Of course, not overeating is another cure for that. And you can take them between meals, which is okay, but not if you have gastritis or ulcers, because they'll irritate those. And for gastritis and ulcers, you need to drink more fluids, take more good oils, take probiotics, but start them in your mouth, and take fiber, like mucilage fiber, like flax, chia, psyllium, okra, slippery elm, because they will help protect your stomach lining from the irritation and the bacteria that get into it. And we have 3 of them. Ultimate digestive enzyme, that's the basic one for anyone who eats food, especially if the foods are cooked. Then we have a daily maintenance one, and that's you call that in the U.S. adult enzyme blend, and that one is particularly for plant-based diets that have no dairy product in them, but it's also made for people on paleo, which is high protein, high fat diets. So they're quite high in protease and lipase. And then the third one, we call it urgent care in Canada, and you call it advanced adult enzyme. And that's a higher dose, has more different proteases in it. It's for people over 50 and anyone with more serious digestion issues, just because it's a much more potent enzyme preparation. So let me run through this. Catalyst, workhorses, got it. Versatile, replace the enzymes destroyed by cooking foods. Digestion takes place outside your body, because the inside of your digestive tract is actually outside your body, and there your enzymes get turned into building blocks, and then life absorbs them into your body. You want to prevent immune attack by making sure your proteins are completely digested, and that's why you take enzymes. I said that you make them in mouth, stomach, pancreas, and cells lining digestive tract. Supplements, okay, enzyme deficiency, all enzymes are proteins, and there's proteases, endo and exopeptidases. They clip proteins from the middle, or from one end or the other end, or on the right side or the left side of a specific amino acid. There are literally dozens of different proteases, and the more different ones you have, the faster your protein digestion takes place. And we have a very wide range, especially in the advanced adult enzyme blend. It has like tons of different kinds of protein digesting enzymes in it. And cellulase is plant fiber. Mixed proteases, I said that. Animal pancreatin is cheap and dirty. Controlled environment. So the way we make the enzymes, if you want to make proteases, you feed the microorganisms protein, and then they secrete proteases into their environment, and there they then break down the protein, and then they absorb the amino acids. So you're not getting bacteria and funguses in your enzyme preparation. You're only getting the enzymes they made, because they separate the enzymes, which are very small because they're just single molecules, from the microbes, which are comparatively really big, that you can filter out. And it's very easy to do that. So whatever food you put them in, you put fat in there, they'll make lipase. You put in starch, they'll make amylase. You put in lactose, and they'll make lactase. You put in raffinose, and they'll make alpha-galactosidase. You throw in wood fiber, and they'll make cellulase. So literally, whatever you throw in the environment, they will make enzymes to break that down, because that's how they feed. Break it down outside, absorb it into their body. And here's some of the people we use, the organisms we use. Aspergillus oryzae, it's a fungus, and it makes proteases that are most active at pH 4.5 and pH 6. And Aspergillus niger makes a protease that is most active at a lower pH, more acidic pH of 3. Rhizopus, it's a rice, or rhizae means it comes from rice. Makes lipase, trichoderma longobrachiatum, good grief. Makes cellulase. Papaya makes papain. This is unripe papaya, not ripe papaya. And there is at least more than 10 proteases in it. And pineapple makes bromelain, more than 10 different proteases. There's the all-purpose. This is the enzyme. 7 different types of active enzymes. Full spectrum. Maximize absorption of all available nutrients. Alpha-galactosidase lactase. Here's the adult one. 7 types. 10 times more bromelain. Paleo, high protein, low carb, or high protein, high fat diet, and also for plant-based diets, alpha-galactosidase, vegans and vegetarians, did all that. And then there's the highest highest potency full spectrum for seniors, elders, those with compromised digestion, all food types, more protease, more lipase, more alpha-galactosidase. And here's the list of them, but that's hard to read, so I made a table. You see the amylase is the same in all of them, and it's a smaller amount. Lipase goes from 150 to 1,000 to 1,500. Bromelain from 50 to 500 to 500. Protease, nothing to 80 in the high dose one. Protease 4.5, 12.5, a little lower in the adult one, and really high in the high dose one. Protease 6, nothing in one, 8,000 and then 10,000 in the high dose one. Lactase for lactose intolerant in the first and the third, but not in the middle one, because that's for people who are not lactose intolerant. Alpha-galactosidase, same, higher, and then cellulase, high, same. So that's what's on the labels, and that's it. Now, I'm done, unless you have questions, and we've gone a little over. I hope I am forgiven for that.
You are definitely forgiven, Udo. Thank you so much for all of that information. We did run a little bit over, so I can't imagine anyone has any questions really after all of that information. I feel like you've touched everything. So okay. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up now. Thank you everybody for attending, and another big thank you to Udo for taking time out of his very busy schedule to speak with us. This webinar will be emailed to everybody soon, and you can also find it by visiting LuckyVitamin.com and search keyword webinar.
Yes.
So while you're there, you can check out all the other cool webinars that are there too. Again, thank you so much for attending, and if you check out your screen, you'll see that we are offering people who have attended this webinar a very special offer on all Udo's Choice items developed by Udo himself. So thank you all very much. Have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.